Uh, Basically, you obviously have been influenced by religion quite a bit. I just
Hmm.
want to get how how you look at the world, how religion influences it,
Hmm.
and I want this to be sort of like a way for people on my side to sort of study, because a lot of us are sort of confused, like why are so many religious people fairly conservative, so maybe you could give us an insight on that. So just explain your general philosophy first religiously, and then maybe like morally and politically, and how they relate.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So first of all, I am a Christian. That's probably the base thing. A lot of people, like from an outside view, they see Christians as just a bunch of people following a rule book and just listening to what their church says. But that's not really how I view my religion and my faith. I view myself more as following after the life of Christ, and I find my identity in being a like adopted child of God. So that pretty much means that I spend my life, like I consider my life to be doing what I can to grow closer to Him, like, and to yeah, serve the world that He like sent me here to serve, because that's what my goal is to serve the world for His cause. Like, yeah.
And then how does that connect to your political philosophies? Probably start out with what are they, and then how serving Christ, in the best way how does that influence that?
Mhm. Yeah, I did a political compass once, and I found I was just barely to the right on conservative and a little down on libertarian. Um, I think how my religious philosophy connects to my political views. Uh, well, I do make all of my decisions subconsciously or consciously based on my religious views, because that's the most important thing in my life. But I do not believe that there is a Christian political party. There's no like one candidate or one party that's perfect in Christ, and oh, this is just the shining example. I did not support Trump as many Christians did, because I did not believe he was showing a good example of how to be a humble man of Christ. Believe it or not, Trump, he had a pride thing. You may have talked about this before. And he also didn't show compassion, or he was also very hostile, and I didn't like that by any means.
I'm the most compassionate person you've ever seen in your life, William. You have no idea.
Like, you got to get the hand up there.
Come on, Will. You're being so unfair. So
Yeah.
why do you think that is, though? Why do you think so many, like especially evangelical
Mhm.
Christians, went so hard for Trump? Do you think it was strictly just cultural issues, or do you think it was any sort of economical uh, sort of issues?
Well, I think if we're starting on social issues, I would say the biggest one that would split Christians would be the issue of abortion, as that's obviously a very like divided, like you are one way or you're the other, and there's a lot of hostility in between. And I think I know people that vote purely on that, and that's, one way to do it. There's obviously, yeah, it's a big issue,
And that
depending
seems
on
to
your view.
be it. As sorry to interrupt, but that seems to be why the Christian aspects of the Republican Party seem to be so focused on the Supreme Court, is because that's who decides issues like abortion,
Mhm.
and not so much anymore, but used to be gay marriage, and
Mhm.
so maybe that's sort of why they sort of do the way they do. They go after the certain institutions that they go after, but yeah. So when you say like living out through Christ, or however you put
Yeah.
it, what is that like? What does that look like? What does that mean? What How do you define that for you personally?
Yeah. For me personally, I would define it as hold on, my roommate's coming in. Just give me a second. I'm doing a podcast right now. Yeah, okay. So for me personally, yeah, living my life through Christ means that every action I make, every step I take is for Him. And it's meant to follow after the example He set, and to, yeah, really embetter the world. Lots of what Jesus taught during His time on earth was um, reaching out to the poor and needy. The original Greek word, I can't say it because I'd butcher it. When Christ talks about the poor, is needy, disadvantaged, and oppressed people. So that is a big issue for me that I think sometimes certain parties aren't addressing as much as they should. But
Okay,
yeah, yeah,
so do you understand why maybe some people on even not just the left, but even more of like the center left liberal, group of people somewhat are confused that these are the values that Christ taught, but also supporting politically a party that in almost every aspect doesn't believe in that, like feeding the poor, the needy, the hungry. They do to an extent, but it's to a much lesser extent than what other groups of other parties believe in. So
yeah.
how do you reconcile those two things?
I think the biggest reason that, say, conservatives will say that they are still doing that is that Christ didn't necessarily, like, Jesus wasn't calling out the government too much. And that's for a lot of different reasons. Like, that's because he knew that uh, calling out the government wouldn't achieve anything because they just think, oh, this is some random crazy dude. But yeah, he really wanted to call on the members of the church and his followers to reach out to people. So they say, like, oh, that means we're supposed to do that outside of the government. So, say, taxing me less, and say, giving me more freedom with my money means that I can do that to a greater extent. And I think that's the biggest argument I hear. Um, I do think like there's a benefit to both. Like the government, like for people that have disabilities and people that need support, like they just have, there's people that have been terrible life stories, like they need the government support, and they should be able to provide them at least basic life things. And there also should be the opportunity for people to give freely and to um, bless each other through their own wealth. But yeah, it's a give and take and a risk reward situation always.
Yeah, no, I actually I think I understand what you're saying, because on one hand, like you said, the freedom to sort of uh, use your money in a Christian way if
Mhm.
you're coming from the perspective of a Christian, but also on the other end, how that allows capital to accumulate, which I would suspect Jesus was against, huge, uneven amounts of capital accumulation and resource distribution. Um, so there's sort of that. On one end, it can be seen as a sort of a Christ-like uh, um, way, but on the other hand, it can also be seen as not Christ-like. So you sort of have to weigh those two. Um, but so like I'll be honest with you, like I don't even like the government that much. Like I think it's pretty oppressive largely, Yeah, honestly. But like in a society where sort of our in this way actually cultural, but also economic forces are all about, profit is sort of everything, and
Mhm,
treating everything as a commodity and an asset that can appreciate, and all these sort of things, right?
mhm,
That in a society like that, you kind of have to create a governing safety net because it's not culturally incentivized to really give your money away in that
mhm.
capacity, or for example like create mutual aid networks and stuff like that. But so I think that's one area where people who are maybe more on the Christian, on any sort of side of the Christian spectrum, and the fairly far left can sort of connect on is like things like mutual aid networks, where it's just like you're creating these sort of infrastructure to give just things that are needed by poor people to poor people to struggling people who don't have the means. Um, because the church does a lot of that stuff, and that's one thing when I was coming up with these sort of new dual power structure, that thing that I sent you, that diagram. One thing I want to look towards the church for is like mutual aid networks and giving back to the community. What do you know your church does for things like that, like donations, community projects to help people, stuff like that?
Yeah, so what we have a program that's called Kingdom Builders that's focused on service work throughout our local area and also the worldwide area. Locally, we have a food shelf, and we every year we host a homeless shelter for a week. The churches rotate in the winter, and a program called Servants of Shelter. Um, we also adopted a school. We provide supplies for Gene Dillon Elementary for students that can't afford it and teachers that are giving them out. Those are just a few off the top of my head. I know we have like lots of little programs where we're just trying to reach out in the community and try and bless the community through the means that we already have. And
No, I
I
think
think
that's.
yeah,
Go ahead, keep going.
yeah, I think a lot of Christians, there's kind of like two schools of thought where Christians will see like wealth as either God's blessing, or they'll see wealth as like, oh, you're just following after devilish things. And I believe those are both extremes. Like, obviously not all wealth is the devil and not all wealth is God, but I do believe that every dollar that we earn, or every dollar that I earn personally, I don't consider it to be mine. I consider it to be money that uh, could be used for me, but if God wants it to, I will try and give it.
You understand how that's somewhat of a communistic perspective, right? This money isn't mine. This is, but yours is sort of more
Mhm.
for a god rather than for
Mhm.
like the. I mean, and sort of, I guess God can sort of represent in many ways in just like an infrastructure sense, like a structural sense, like community, because that's sort of what communism is. It's the same thing, but for community. All these
Yeah.
things aren't mine, it's the communities. But you say all these things are mine, they're God's.
Yeah.
Um, and I also want people, I want to be like very clear, that, like what you described, things like food shelves, giving money and supplies to schools. These are all like very clear mutual aid networks that are like
Mhm.
what we need to be studying off of on the left. And another thing that I think is important, and maybe you can speak to, is I know one reason that we look at in my political science classes about why the Democrats lost the South. There's a lot of attention paid to the racial aspect, and clearly introducing the Civil Rights Act had a lot to do with it, right? But also, Democrats have lost a lot of their ability to organize in churches because, compared to like the compared to like the 1940s, there's a lot less religiosity, certainly over the past 20 years, I'd say.
Yeah.
But especially over the past like 70 to 80 years. And because of that, um, the the functionality of churches as a means to organize politically has diminished. But I want to broaden this out to more just community organizing in general, not just political, but community, just for overall community well-being, community goals. How do you think if and I know this is sort of on the spot, but how do you think churches can function in that sort of a role of building more community cohesion, the, no matter what the religious perspective is, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of that has to start with churches actually working together, which I know personally our church does everything we can to work together with other churches, but some denominations are really isolationist, where they believe that only their views are right, so they will not work together with anyone. But a lot of there is a churches group in Bemidji that works together and puts together projects and has service systems for the community. And I believe that is a big first step. Is first of all, Christians quit hating on each other and actually work together. Which I know you've read a history book; it's not easy for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, one joke that goes around the left here is uh, we haven't been able to agree on anything since the French Revolution. So,
Yeah.
but no, but so I think sort of what you're describing is like sort of a federation of churches where churches are more interconnected and they can rely on each other more for resources, for organizing, for membership, for services, stuff like that. And I think I'd agree with that. And then so that's for the Christians aspect, and then sort of more to the community organizing, community projects aspects. Well, I know. I mean, look, I'm not particularly Christian, but I've played some softball in Christian League softball, a couple games. I'm not as experienced as Will. I'm not a veteran, but
Please.
yeah. But sort of things like that. How do you see that playing a role in like the church's membership and the communities that they serve? Those things like the softball leagues, or maybe you guys have a basketball league or something too. I don't know. Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think the first thing to be said is a lot of times you'll see uh, the body of Christ mentioned in the Bible. And the body of Christ just stands for anyone who's following after Christ. It's not standing for a certain church or anything. So it's important that, once again, we don't discriminate based on our views on transubstantiation. Like, this isn't the Protestant Reformation. We don't have to kill each other over it. But yeah, speaking more to community outreaches such as like softball leagues, we have a thing on Treat Street in the high school. We have a little stand where we give out candy, like little community outreaches like that, just to um, just do fun things to bring people together. I think that is a big part of what we call fellowship, and that's in the Bible. Jesus mentions that no Christian should stand alone. Like, they should always be with each other, and they should always be growing closer together. And I believe with things like softball, we're able to invite people who have no idea, like, they've always been scared of the church because they think of the church, they think of like these evil judgmental Christians, but they're like, oh, we're gonna go play softball. Yeah, I'll play. And it's just like a little opportunity to expose, like, hey, look, we're not all these stereotypical um MAGA hat wearing, uh make signs saying we hate gay people Christians. Like, we're actually a loving group that just wants to have fun with you guys.
So you guys aren't that religious cult that stands outside of military funerals? Oh,
Westboro Baptist? No,
yeah.
no, we are not.
You're not that brand. Okay, sweet. No, but I think that's good to hear because a lot of people, I would say a disproportionate amount of people on the left are apprehensive at the very least of religion, but
Hmm.
probably more antagonistic even to religion. And I think it's okay to be maybe skeptical or apprehensive of something, but I think the culture of being like intentionally antagonistic towards groups of people or towards, just institutions in general um that really aren't the, you know, that really aren't the problem in the overarching sense. I think that's problematic, and I also think it's a horrible way to outreach to people. Um, but also, okay, so this is going to be is hell real in your opinion?
Is hell this? Yeah, that was the curveball. Um, I believe so. I will tell you the details in the Bible are not as specific as people think. A lot of people's perception of hell is literally just the book Dante's Inferno. Um, but I personally believe that hell is just eternal separation from God, which is kind of, if you think about it, what people were already doing while they were living on earth. But yeah, that's my personal belief on what hell is explicitly stated as in the Bible, is that people will be separated from God. Yeah, I don't have any personal opinions on like, oh, are there lakes of fire or the eternal gnashing of teeth, or like, I believe a lot of those things are imagery to represent just the mental suffering that takes from knowing that there's a God out there and you can't reach him anymore.
Do you think if someone who lives out the way Christ maybe wants them to, but doesn't exactly participate in church activities and doesn't read the Bible. So what I'm saying is, can someone who is a good person, but not necessarily through choice or just through happenstance of where they were born, can someone be
Mhm.
a good person but not necessarily a Christian and go to heaven?
Yeah, I like to mention it. So this is a really tough question because biblically it says we all sin and fall short of the glory of God, which means none of us are worthy to go to heaven. That's the first thing I tell people. Like, I'm not worthy, you're not worthy. We're all not worthy because we all, like, why would we be worthy to be with this perfect being when we are imperfect people? Like, all of this is God's grace and God saying it's okay that you're imperfect, um because like, I want to have this relationship with you, I want to forgive you, I want to bring you love. He doesn't want eternal condemnation, but the problem is the way to receive that grace is to ask Jesus into your life, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to um go to church. Like, there's no requirement of you need to go to church every Sunday, you need to read the Bible every day, otherwise you'll lose your salvation. It's just having Jesus, like saying, I want to follow Jesus and I want him in my life to forgive me of my sins and to, give me his love. That's, I believe that's the only requirement. But yeah, I actually do not believe that people can get it in off their own merit. If anything, that's a very Catholic belief, that people can earn their way into heaven. That's when they have like indulgences, like you can pay your way into heaven
When you're
based on
talking
your
earning,
actions.
though, when you're talking about earning, you're not talking about moral earning. You're more talking about a financial earning.
Oh, Catholic Church does both. Like, they talk about personal works, like your your personal conduct can earn your way into heaven. And when you mess up, then you just make up for it through indulgences or through Hail Marys, or like, they have a very merit based system, which I don't believe was God's intention by any means.
So, do you personally believe in evolution?
Yes and no.
Do you believe that it
Um,
was evolution guided by God?
yeah, okay, so I do believe that at least 98% of evolution is true and the other 2% is gray for me. If you look, like, the Hebrew time system is very messed up. Not messed up, just the way they write it is very ambiguous.
Yes, yes,
So
it is.
believe me, like the young Earth people are the people where I'm like, what? Where did you're reading it in English and you think you understand it, but you're
So
still
you're
making.
not a young Earth
I
person.
am not a young Earth person. Now,
So a mutual friend of ours, not friend, but
the
I'll
former
say this:
teacher.
a teach.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, is a young Earther, and I don't think he believes in dinosaurs either. So that's interesting. But it's good to hear that you, at least on that basis,
Mhm.
pretty solid that the world is older than 6,000 years. But no, yeah, continue.
Yeah, there is the semi-popular, at least newer belief that the when God has the 7 days, what could be 7 days to God could be billions of years to us, and like the process of time could have happened. I'm not going to speak to that and say it's 100% true or not. I personally believe that your stance on evolution, it won't affect my day-to-day life, so I try not to worry about it too much. That's like when people ask me about eschatology or revelation and the end times. I think like, all I know is that I am ready if God comes back. Like, I don't know how it'll happen. I don't know when it'll happen. I don't think those are important details. I think it's important just to be ready. So it's like the same thing. Yeah, I don't think me believing that evolution is fake is going to get me into heaven. Like, that's not a required. Yeah.
Um, okay. How about climate change? And does religion? What I'm more interested in is one thing that I've heard about climate change denial is that because God promised he wouldn't flood the earth, that's why climate change can't be happening. Do you believe in climate change, and does religion have any effect over that at all?
Uh, yeah. I would say I believe in climate change. Obviously, everyone who believes in climate change believes in a different degree of it. Um, like the amount of the natural earth shifting, the amount of our carbon emissions, amount of everything. I don't have like, I can tell you the exact numbers and everything, but yes, I do believe in it. But I don't think religious things have anything to do with it. God saying that he wouldn't flood the earth again is him saying that he wouldn't personally send down a flood to take over the whole earth. He didn't say that he's going to stop us if we do it ourselves. Like, but obviously we're not flooded.
Yeah, yeah, no, but so okay, that's good to know. So can I read you some Bible verses that maybe you can translate for me, maybe make put into context so I can sort of
Yeah,
understand
for
them?
sure.
Okay, this is from Acts 2:44 through 45. It says, all the believers were together and had everything in common, selling their possessions and goods they gave to anyone as he had need.
Yeah.
Now, what this reminded me of is to each his ability, to each his need, which is a very famous sort of communist rhetoric, I guess. Put this particular sort of what are we seeing? What are they explaining?
Yeah. So first of all, I love Acts 2. I just want to throw that out there. If you want to read like um a chapter on the current church that like will explain a lot of it, Acts 2 is pretty good, especially 42 through 47. But yeah, 45 and 46. Is that what you were saying? 45 and 46?
44 and 45.
44 and 45. Yeah. So this is how at the time they're instructing the new church to gather into fellowship is to pretty much be, the Bible preaches interdependence between believers, not independence or dependence, but interdependence, which was really difficult for me because I was always taught in this American system of how you have to be independent. And
That's such a great point.
I am struggling, but I'm trying to shift into being able to ask other people when I have need and to reach out to other people. And I believe that the Bible says that believers should do this in a religious setting. And at times when I think of, like, if you say a communist society, would it happening in a government setting prevent it from being able to happen in a
Well,
religious setting?
that's actually a great point. So when I'm talking about a communist society, I'm not talking about traditional socialist
I,
societies run
yeah,
by communist parties, but
mhm,
I'm talking about the true communist project, which is a
yeah,
stateless, moneyless,
mhm,
classless society. But yeah, continue.
yeah. So I believe that believers truly need to be selfless with their money, and yeah, that's the base of what Jesus taught, is that uh, being rich and seeking money after yourself will only bring separation from other people and separation from God, because you'll start focusing on your money instead of your faith. Like, that'll be the God of your life, hypothetically speaking. That'll be the idol. Like, people where their only goal in life is to pursue more and more money. And that's ultimately a satisfactionless pursuit that will never end. Like,
Do you
there's no
think?
end goal. Yeah.
Do you think that maybe because that's a very profound sort of insight that brings about, because right now we're like one of the most connected yet alienated and lonely societies
Hmm.
probably ever.
Yeah.
uh and a lot of it's because of just the sense of financial and resource scarcity that we need to work constantly to keep up with and to stay above water. Do you think this sort of incentivization in society to always get more money to invest and to
Mhm.
do all this stuff, do you think that draws the you can draw connections to that in our current society and the alienation we face now?
Yeah. So religiously, the biggest verse, the one you'll always hear when you talk about Jesus and money, is for the love of money is the root of all evil. That's the one I'm sure you've heard a million times, and even people that don't know anything about the Bible have heard someone say that in one way or another. But that is the biggest thing, is that Jesus at that point, he wasn't saying that money is the root of evil, but he's saying the love of money was the eternal pursuit, the greed, the need for it, because they believe that money is actually more important than their relationships with people, which I believe is one thing that tears apart the church. If you look at the televangelists with the prosperity gospel that say, "You give to me, and I guarantee that more money will be coming your way," and it's like, you're not supposed to make the Christian church a money-based incentive system. Like, that's not what God wanted. The Bible says, "Give and you will be blessed," but that doesn't necessarily mean if you give people money, you're going to be financially blessed. That means you give people money and you'll be blessed by God in your own life. You'll be blessed with happiness. You'll be blessed with interconnection. Like, you'll form a heart-to-heart connection with that person because they understand that you care for them. Like, yeah, I believe that the endless pursuit of money in our society ultimately separates us. But money itself isn't as much the villain as the pursuit.
So what you're saying is it's not necessarily the existence of money. It's
Hmm.
more the societal and cultural sort of forces that force us to pursue money uh to no end, right?
Hmm.
Um so with that being the case, the only way to move past that would have to be to advancing to a society that just isn't based on that. Slowly, probably, but eventually.
Yeah, and well, that is an idea, and that is obviously a very abstract idea. because
Yes, very.
the manner and how everything happens is very
That's where the
obviously.
debate comes in. Yeah.
Mhm. And it's hard to say that with just human nature itself we could ever function into a society. I believe that wealthless society would be very difficult but possible, but a classless society I feel like is would almost be impossible with the natural human nature to form groups and then try to build up their own group by tearing others down. Like you see that all over the world of people being afraid of what's different than them, which is where a lot of, believe it or not, racism comes from.
Oh,
But
that's a great insight, and I agree with that. That's one thing that I think will be the most difficult between the stateless, classless, moneyless society. I think actually the classless, the that need for classification of humans will probably be the most difficult. So I think you're right about that.
Mhm. Because
Um,
everyone is always
yeah,
searching for identity. They're always searching for a group to belong to.
yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, which I think a lot of people on the left use class actually as a means of uh you know sort of playing to that sort of need of being in a group. They say, well, we're in the working poor, we're in the working class, we're in the working
Mhm.
poor, we are not a part of the ownership class. So they sort of, we exploit that sort of the class aspect of our society in sort of a similar way that I guess capitalists would sort of exploit theirs, except theirs is more of a monetary function and ours is more of an organizational function, though
Mhm.
theirs is organizational very much as well. Do you think capitalism exploits Christianity in the sense of like the reason why holidays are like a month long now, and like like Christmas is like 2 months long, Easter is like a big sales event, all the every holiday is a sales event. And do you ever think about that aspect of it?
Yeah, obviously consumerism has taken a hold of almost every major holiday out there. I think Arbor Day is safe. Um,
Arbor
but
Day will always be safe from capitalism, and I suppose Labor Day, and yeah, but other than that.
yeah, um, do I can't blame stores for offering sales on gifts in the season of giving. Um, but I do agree that certain people try to take advantage of people's religious beliefs to embetter their own pursuit or their own company or whatever. And that hurts me because I see a lot of religious people get taken advantage of to that degree. Like, oh, it's this holiday, that means you have to have this, otherwise you're not doing it right. And in reality, when you talk about Christmas, yes, it's like it's a nice thing to give each other gifts, but that's not the religious meaning of the holiday. It's the birth of Jesus, this not beautiful thing. 'Cause if you go back, it was in a dirty farm with a bunch of random people, and
Yeah,
but
yeah.
a beautiful event, not a beautiful thing. And Easter was obviously like has nothing to do with consumerism. That was just like if you throw in the Easter bunny, that was people trying to seek profit. Like, oh, what if we sold people chocolate then? Why? Because people like chocolate. Okay.
What if we did Halloween in the spring?
Whoa, how do we do that? I don't know. What holidays are in the spring? Easter. That has nothing to do with that. Who cares?
Throw a bunny, get some costumes, get some candy. This is
It'll
gonna
be
be great.
okay.
Are you aware of the Mondragon Cooperative? Have you ever heard of that?
I don't believe I have actually.
So it's the largest cooperative in the world. They get a lot. They supply companies like Microsoft and Apple and huge companies.
Mhm.
General Motors is another big contractor of theirs. They're this series of cooperative. It's like a cooperative conglomerate
Hmm.
and they're all worker owned enterprises. So the workers evenly own each enterprise. They have their own university in Spain, and they're also the seventh largest economic enterprise in Spain. If you throw all the public and private companies together, they're the seventh largest. And what's interesting about it is actually they were started by a Basque priest. Like he started the original cooperative over 200 years ago. Um, and obviously, cooperative commerce is a very essential pillar to creating a alternative to our current society, because economic functions, delivering goods, these are all very essential things to our society, and I don't think that'll ever change. Uh, so my point in bringing that up is just to to sort of, I think in the left we don't think a lot about, uh, we're very focused on certain portions of history, like a lot of people, but uh, we sort of forget some parts of our history and how people of faith, Martin Luther King's a great example of this as well. How
Yeah,
people
pretty
of
decent guy.
faith, yeah, how people of faith really have affected our movement over time. Um, I know Eugene Debs was
Yeah.
very influenced as well by Jesus. He said he this is a quote from Eugene Debs. He said he denounced the profiteers, and it was for this that they nailed his quivering body to the cross. If Christ could go on the cross for his principles, surely I can go to prison for mine. Shortly after, he was sent to prison for speaking out against the First World War.
Hmm.
Ran for president from prison, stuff like that. He also did have critiques of the church. Maybe you can respond to this critique. He said, I never darken a church door because I hate hypocrisy almost as much as I love the character and teachings of Jesus Christ. Christianity is a beautiful faith. The trouble is that there are only that he said the trouble is that there are only so pitifully few Christians in the world.
Yeah, that would. I believe there's a similar quote from Gandhi where he said, "I love your Jesus, but I don't love your Christians because of their hypocrisy." And I believe that everyone who says that they're trying, who says that they are following God and makes mistakes, to a sense, is a hypocrite. Because yes, I can't live a perfect life like Jesus, but there are people who will not live, who will, say these things and they'll judge people, but then they'll go off and do terrible things. And that's where you see the hypocrisy of like these Christians, like why aren't they acting like Christians? And I think there's uh, a chapter in Matthew I'd like to bring up about mostly hypocrisy and judgment, because I think that is the biggest thing that people will go off of. Christians will often be considered very judgmental, and I don't doubt that. I've seen people that will have a lot of personal problems, but they'll still be trying to pinpoint someone else's just so they can feel better than them, which is not what the faith is about at all. So let me read Matthew chapter 7 real quick. Judge not that you not be judged, for with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use it, you will be measured to you. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when there is the log in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye, then you will see clearly, take the speck out of your brother's eye. So that kind of speaks to the fact that a lot of people spend their lives in hypocrisy because they're constantly judging others without judging themselves. And I believe
So
that's a Christian pandemic of sorts, of people doing that. Yeah.
yeah, and just from a personal perspective, like that's one thing that always turned me off. I mean, I think, but the only way I really got back into it to the point where I'm able to talk about it, on a stream, is because of talking to people like you who didn't live on a high horse and were very understanding about different perspectives, and I don't actually think that that's a religious thing. I do think that that has more to do with, I mean, I can be this way when it comes to, politics. I think it's a lot of what you surround yourself with and involve yourself with that maybe is the reason why people think that. But um, yeah, so I think that was a really good thing to bring up because it shows how the Bible does preach in many ways. Living up to what you're believing in, and to not judge other people if they don't live up to that standard. Because and I think a lot of Christians think this as well. This is one thing that um, Cornell West says a lot is like, I there somebody's already going to be judging. Like that's not my job.
Mm.
When we all die, we get judged, and so it's not my job to do that. And I think that's a good thing for people to live by. Um, but yeah, I think the last thing I want to get into is something probably the most serious thing we'll talk about in this whole discussion. And so it's been a long winter. It's been uh, maybe not weather wise, but when it comes to baseball, we've gotten significantly less baseball over the past 2 years that then we're.
This team sucks too.
Oh, really?
Minnesota basketball and football this year have been atrocious. But yeah, keep going.
So the Twins got to bring it home then, right? Because I mean, we need one team to give us hope so they can destroy it, right? How do you think the Twins are going to do this year?
I think it's actually impressive the amount I bounce between the Twins are going to take the World Series and the Twins are going to finish dead last. How I can somehow bi-weekly change back and forth of like, whoa, that was a really good move. Like they picked him off the waiver. That was pretty sweet. And then like, seriously, they just did that. Like, but I don't know. The whole Rosario situation was very difficult for me because who doesn't love Eddie as a guy?
What explain the Eddie situation?
Well, I mean, just the whole back and forth of people ripping on Eddie. And yes, I understand if you go off of uh whatever a money ball standpoint, Eddie is not a productive player for the money we're giving him. But man, just talk about just a crowd pleasing man and losing him.
Sells tickets,
Yes, he does.
and so does someone like Estudillo.
Oh, Williams Astadio. I did not bring my La Tortuga shirt, but I have a shirt with him running with his face going and then the helmet flying back saying La
Yep.
Tortuga.
Well, and another guy who's sort of like that was Sergio Romo. I was kind of disappointed that we
Oh, I
let
liked
him go
Romo.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
disappointed we let him go in free agency because he was like I think what Minnesota people from Minnesota liked about him is he was just very humble and he was
Mm,
very just strange and
yeah.
okay with it.
He had his own
Yeah.
personality.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think Buxton's gonna have a breakout year? Or do you think it's gonna be just injury riddled again?
It is Buxton's always going to have a breakout year, but Buxton, I don't think will ever have a breakout year. Um, I will always hold on to hope that he will
I mean,
because
to be fair to him though, he had one year where he hit like 20 some home runs
oh
and
he's
batted like 270, 280, but he got hurt
mm-hmm,
a lot too.
mm-hmm. That was tough because when the yeah that year he started off he was hitting over 300 hitting enough home runs and then obviously being himself in the outfield making plays that I think literally no one else in the league would make. And
Yeah,
anytime you see him running on the bases, like why bother throwing the ball, you're not going to get him.
right, exactly. Um, Brian Dozier retired. Did you see that?
I saw that. Mm-hmm.
How do you think? he was such a cool story because he was like a 16th round pick
Hmm.
and he had no power. And then one year he just found out how to hit
Swing
dingers.
differently. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like I remember watching it too, and this is like crazy because this is like 2013, 2014. But I remember watching the first half of the year, and it was like, oh, okay, this guy hit 3 home runs, he hit a couple doubles, and then the last half of the year he hit like 13 home
Hmm.
runs, and I was like, what the hell? Where the hell did that come from? And so I was like, all right, 16 home runs, and then the next year he hit like 28, and it was like,
Hmm.
all right, this dude fucking found his swing. But he was a staple on the Twins for a while, like
Hmm.
a leader. Him and Escobar, another fan favorite.
Yeah.
The Twins have really changed a lot, especially over the past 4 to 5 years. What do you
Yes.
think's different about the team now?
Yeah, the team definitely is rotating through players more and more. We don't have that solid core of people that we keep. Like we were like, it's a really great idea. We should pick up Donaldson. That has no chance of flopping. It, but we have become more of a modern team as opposed to like an old school build up a group of guys. We've become a modern find the people that work for a situation and pick them up. And that I understand that's the new style, but it hurts me as a fan because I love like cheering for the Escobars and the Dozers and seeing them year after year build up and hearing Brian Dozier in an interview. Yeah, I kind of just changed how I grip the bat and now I hit it 80 feet farther. But how, what, like, and
Yeah,
that's like
overall,
some Kirby
oh
Puckett and how he was a clean, he didn't take any steroids. He just gained a lot of weight and
no,
muscle.
yeah,
And
he
like,
just went blind for no reason.
oh, love Kirby.
Yeah, so like I think like overall I do like the direction the Twins are going in better, not just because of the results, but more just because like it's yeah, like you said, we're more modern. It's like our manager is younger than like our oldest player. Our team directors or whatever you want to call them, Thad and Tad are both
Yeah.
super like forward thinking. And also I like this sort of new culture we've developed where I like people like LaTroy Hawkins, Michael
Hmm.
Kadire,
Yeah.
Michael Morneau, Justin Morneau. Um,
Bowling for.
and it seems like Nelson Cruz is going to do that too. It seems like
Oh,
Nelson Cruz could possibly be like a coach because
he could
he
replace
seems
that
to like yeah he
Canadian.
seems to like Minnesota a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
that'd be. I do really like that. I personally miss seeing Gardenhire throw his hat, and I know we can still watch it, but it was just something special when it was on our side and watch that
yeah,
little man go out there in anger.
yeah, it's like what are you looking forward to when your team is losing 100 games if it's not some beat red cherry faced old guy going out to yell at a
Goatee,
referee that will make absolutely no difference in any game.
a call that wasn't even close. He's just like Guardy's just way off on it, but he will defend that to his grave.
One thing that I don't miss though is like sometimes when the Twins play, they'll play against a team that is going through what we used to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a team of people that if you're not a fan of the team, you look at that lineup and you say, who the hell are these people? Who let them into Major League Baseball?
Yeah.
Like, and it's like it's people like Cleet Thomas, um,
Your Mike Tolberts.
Mike Tolberts. Here's less of an example, but Danny Santana at shortstop.
Oh, I love
Um,
Santana.
I love him too, dude. His first year was incredible. People like
Him and
Pedro Florimon.
Pedro Flormon. You're Kenny's Vargas, where you're like, yeah, he is the next David Ortiz. No,
Andrew Albers,
Boof Bonzer.
uh, Schwarzak,
Forzak was a good one. Nishioka.
Casey Fiend.
man, I need to go back. Like, can I hit early 2000s, or is that
Yeah,
stretching my
yeah, go
range
ahead.
here? Oh, no, I'm wondering if I can personally hit early 2000s anymore. Oh, who was our catcher? Our catcher that switched to the White Sox, even though he's Przinsky. Like, he was
Yep.
a great catcher. I can't say that, but
Ryan Doman.
not right. Or the best catcher of Twins history, I'd argue, is John Ryan Murphy. Man,
Yeah,
I'm
John
sure
Ryan
glad we gave
Murphy.
away Aaron Hicks, one of my favorite players, for John Ryan Murphy.
I really think we should have signed Josh Willingham to a 7-year contract.
I love Josh. The Hammer?
Yeah. Dude, he looks like he still goes to Sunday school like with his kids, like just
Oh,
to
he looks like your middle-aged Mormon dad that just decided
yes.
to play Major League Baseball, and he's just having a great time out there.
If he retired in Utah, you're on something very special.
Oh, man. He's
Yeah,
going to just destroy some church softball league somewhere.
he hit 2 grand slams in one game before for the A's.
Yeah,
That
man, and
was
some power.
yeah, no, he hit like 30 home runs the first year that he got in the league, but um well, JJ Hardy, Alexa Castillo, I think that's probably where we'll leave that conversation off.
We should have kept JJ Hardy, but Alexi Casilla, I will always remember his walk-off. And,
When
oh, man, what game am I thinking of? Because I remember he got the hit. Who came home? Carlos Gomez, Cargo, not Gonzalez.
oh yeah, Carlos Gomez. He was a
What game is that?
legendary guy.
Is that 2009 or
Damn.
2010?
See, I started following baseball religiously in 2012. So, like anything before that, like I generally have a somewhat of a clue, but I don't actually know like games and specific
Yeah,
moments.
2000. Well, obviously 2009. You got Joe Mauer MVP year.
Yeah, yeah. What year did Morneau win the home run derby?
I think same year.
Yeah. Wow.
And whatever. And then we, for some reason, old Twins players kept getting batting titles. Like,
And then so was that the same year that Target Field opened?
no, I think Target Field, was it?
Or was it the
Oh, I
last year
think
in the dome?
I think they actually opened it the year after because
Yeah,
they
so
saw that Joe Mauer was poking home runs into left field. So they're like, we should make left field the only possible place to hit home runs.
yeah, definitely. All right, William. Well, I'm gonna I sort of want you to be our religion guy, so you're gonna have to be our sort of our religion correspondent for us.
I'll tell you, I'm always willing. Uh, Late March, I will be leaving for a country that I'll
To be
I'll
named
text you when
later.
I can, but is going to be impoverished and most likely without internet
How long are you gonna be there?
till like June, first, second week of June.
So get another one in before you leave. That's what you're saying.
Another one before I leave, and one when I get back. I can do one in person, maybe.
Damn, that would be sweet. Yeah, we could meet up somewhere, maybe even at the your guys' church. Even that'd be cool.
Yeah, that's always open. I know a guy.
Um, yeah, you know a guy. All right. Well, thank you for doing this, for taking the time, William Hubert, the soon to be brain trust of um,
You can
some
do it.
prestigious university. What? Oh, Dartmouth. Yeah, yeah. So all you Yale guys better watch the fuck out. That's what that means. Who
Yeah,
are your
Yale
guys'
football.
rivals?
Well, I mean, most of the time Cornell, but they're like kind of trash at football right now. Last year, it was Dartmouth and Yale had the same record, so they held the co-Ivy League title. And this year,
You
the Ivy League just didn't play college sports.
you tacky Eastern fucks in Cornell. William's gonna come after you.
What's up, Big Red? Or like, I'm wearing